love recognition so much. I was hyping it up backstage. Nice to meet you. When corporate asked me to speak at convention, I smiled when I saw what they wanted me to speak on. I love doing things my own way. I've taught my 3 children to do things their own way. So it's really my thing. I could speak on this subject for hours, and we only have 20 minutes. So I have decided to tell you a story. 2012 was a very defining year for many of us. You can go back and think what you were doing in 2012 maybe. I was in the middle of a terrible business breakup. I had a very successful business with another woman. We had written a bestseller on money. We were doing TV, radio, PR, lots of media workshops all around Denmark. And I knew that our ways were heading in separate directions. It was just like a very painful process. Almost like a very heavy divorce. I've never been divorced, but in a way I feel like I have, because I had a business divorce. I spent many nights trying to convince myself to kind of stay even though it broke me. I was in love with her potential and all the magic that we could create together. And I knew that I didn't want to face the fact that we weren't good for each other anymore. If you've been there, I know you know that feeling. During that time, I saw Louise Hay. She held a 4-day seminar called The Art of Extreme Self-Care. That was in Miramar in Arizona. And her book, You Can Heal Your Life, had really changed my life and the way I viewed health and wealth. So I felt very called to be there. I know many of you have read her book. It was an epic book in the 80s, yeah. And it's a very non-compliant book, I guess we say in doTERRA. She taught me the deep correlation between our body, our mind, and our soul. And she also helped me transform my relationship to money and abundance. So I booked the seminar with a friend, and it was completely just what we needed. Because the theme was self-care, the schedule allowed for a lot of time in the afternoons where we could just integrate the teachings and explore different healing activities. We went on hikes, we had astrology sessions, we did spa treatments, and we had lots of great food and lots of green juice, and we talked for hours around the pool. I met Louise several times, and in the beginning I couldn't even say hello to her because her teaching had had such an impact in my life that I kind of couldn't speak. But later on we hugged and she signed my book, and I still have it to this day. One afternoon we had booked an equine experience. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a form of therapy with horses. We were taken to a ranch outside of a hotel by a man called Webb. He was wearing like a big cowboy hat, lots of denim. He had a huge belt and cowboy boots. And yesterday, Dr. Riggs, he was like, oh, I see a cowboy hat. Now that makes me feel like home. For me, it was completely different. I'm from Denmark. I didn't know any cowboys, so that was like a feeling of being a long way from home. The workshop was called It's Not About the Horse. It was a workshop about self-sabotage, and it was an opportunity to see and change what was not working in our lives. We were taken to this big arena, and inside was like a giant horse, the biggest horse I'd ever seen. His name was Eilvig. Wyatt, he explained that our task was to go up to Eilvig and lift his leg, and then clean his hoof. My number one strength is strategy. So I didn't know that before doTERRA, but I chose to sit next to last. We were 8 women in that seminar. That way I could get a chance to learn by viewing the other people's process, and then I didn't have to close out the whole thing, so that was my strategy. Wyatt, he was like, try what you think will work. If that doesn't work, try something different. And if you don't know what to do, you can always ask for help. And back then, asking for help was not my big thing, so I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. The first woman went up to Wyatt, and he was like, how are you? And she was like, very well, thank you. And you could see that she was like completely nervous and shaking, and he just looked at her and he was like, you don't look very well. You look very nervous. She went up to Eilvig, and he didn't lift his leg. Wyatt asked her to come back and try again. And she kind of sweet-talked the horse, trying to stroke him a little bit, like she was almost flirting in a way. And Wyatt, he was like, is that what you do back home? You act nice in order to get your needs met? He explained that the strategy of manipulation and flirt is like a refined form of powerlessness, and the horse wouldn't go for it. Horses sense our energy. They're on the team of you can get real or you can get lost. There's no split energy. So I grew up learning not to depend on any man. I don't know if that's like a good strategy. It was the strategy of my mom. So flirting and manipulation had never been my strategy, but I had so much empathy for her pain, and I saw how exhausting it was to always be nice in order to get your needs met. The second woman, she would go back and forth 8 times, and it just blew my mind. I almost had to sit on my hands, and I wanted to remind her of the rules, like, why didn't she ask for help? Why didn't she try something new? It blew my mind. She was like, is this a trick horse? And we were all like, oh. and Wyatt, he was just very kind. He was like, no, it's not. It's a real horse. She was like, is there a magic button? And he was like, yes, honey, and it's inside of you. She looked so shameful and very close to burnout. And Wyatt was like, how are you feeling? She was like, I feel like such a failure. I'm very tired. And he was like, do you just work that hard at home without success? And then he went on to talk about the hustle mentality, all the hard work that comes with that, including no results. And by then we were all just crying with her because we knew that struggle, it was so real, and we all knew how that felt. Keep repeating things that are not working and not knowing what else to do. The third woman, she was from Manhattan. I really liked her. We had connected on the car over. She was wearing like a baseball cap, and she was very masculine in her vibe, like very bossy vibes. She walked up to the horse with such confidence, and the horse didn't lift his leg. And then she pushed the horse, and I almost freaked out because I knew now we're pissing off the cowboys. This is not going to be a good afternoon. Wyatt, he was like, get back over here. Why are you hurting my animal? And because I don't like conflict, I almost stopped breathing, and I left my body for a short while. She, on the other hand, didn't seem to mind. She explained that she was working in a very male-dominated company, so she was used to just having her dukes up. Made her feel safe in many ways. Wyatt made her see that it also prevented her from connection and intimacy. So she was having that heart wall up. This is where we use marjoram. I don't know if that's compliant to say, but it's a good oil for the heart wall. Wyatt gave her a chance to go back with that new awareness and her new energy, and the horse would lift his leg, and we all cheered for her. By then, I must have been in my own process. I don't remember all 8 women, and suddenly it was just my turn. And I felt this huge wave of fear, terror actually. I almost didn't know what to do. I didn't have any experiences with horses, and I had never ridden on a horse, and I didn't want to fail in front of an audience. That's very painful, especially if you're a perfectionist like I am. By then, I understood the strategy. When you have strategy as your #1 strength, it's like your mind will see patterns, it will scan for those patterns, and you'll just find the easy, fastest way to something. And you'll go for the solutions. So I knew that I would succeed if I stayed authentic, and I just embraced all of my fear and all of my emotion. And then I just needed to try something, maybe adjust, or maybe ask for help. Wyatt, he was like, "How are you doing, honey?" And I said, "I'm really scared of horses, and I don't want to fail in front of a group." And he was like, "Oh, okay, we have another perfectionist. I get a lot of those women." And he was like, "What are you scared of?" And I explained, I don't want to be kicked, and I don't like biting, and I don't like to be out of control. I don't know how to deal with horses. And back then, for some reason in my mind, I thought horses could kick like ninja way in all directions. I didn't know how that worked. So he explained, if you stay on the side of the horse, you're out of the legs and the mouth, so you're going to be fine. And he also said that need for control that you have is like based in fear, and it always leads to self-sabotage. Do your best and then adjust from there. So I took a deep breath, I prayed for help, and I went up to Eilvig, embracing all of my emotions, just leading with a clear ask. He lifted his leg so fast that I almost dropped it. My hands were shaking as I cleaned his hoof, and so much energy was rushing through my system. I went back over to Wyatt, and he laughed, and he was like, "You did it." And I felt like I had just won the Olympics or something. He paused. He paused, and then he did that cowboy thing where they look you deeper in the eyes. I don't know if you've met any cowboys. They do the same thing in Kenya. They look in your eyes and they pause. And when you're from Scandinavia, it's like a complete intimate thing where you're like, "Wow, that's a lot." So he looked me deep in the eyes, and he said, "How was that experience for you?" And I was so confused. I was like, "What do you mean? I did it. I got the gold medal. I mean, we should celebrate." And he was like, "Did you enjoy that assignment?" And I was like, oh. I had been so focused on succeeding that I didn't have any room to enjoy any of it. And he said, life is not about crossing things off your list. We're here for such a short time, and your task is to enjoy it. And my heart sank, and his words hit me like in a brick in my stomach. And he looked out at the other women, and we were all painfully aware of all the things we had missed in order to be perfect or mark something as done. I saw how my life had been a constant race of reaching goals and next levels, and I made a pact with myself to focus on my enjoyment from that moment on. My friend was last. She grew up around horses, so she went up to the horse just being in her zone of genius. She would solve all their assignments very fast, Wyatt even tried to make her do it with her eyes closed and with her back to the horse, and she did it just very fast and with such ease and grace. He asked her how this experience was for her, and she replied, "Oh, I just love being around horses." And Wyatt looked at her again with that cowboy vibe, and he was like, "Do you get to ride much at home?" And she was like, "Oh, no, not really, I'm a mom." Like, we say that because that explains everything, I'm a mom, right? I was so impressed of the way he nailed every pain point in the group. He was like a clairvoyant cowboy, so deeply connected to his heart space. My friend saw that she had stopped riding when she became a mom. And he continued, "It's not very nice to deny ourselves the things we love the most. Go give Elvis a big hug," and she did, and she cried and we all cried. We returned to Denmark. We made huge changes to our lives, and I'll have to save those stories for another time. But the short version is that I left my former business partner, created another successful business on my own, and I began leading with enjoyment and understanding that life is so very short. So here's what I learned from my afternoon with Wyatt and Elvis. We can only create a real heartfelt success if we show up authentically. The trick is to embrace our emotions and communicate them. If we fall out of alignment when we try to manipulate or hide our true feelings. What really blew my mind over and over again, and what changed my mindset forever, was that the horse didn't care about anything other than aligned energy and a clear ask. That day I understood that all the things we're insecure about, none of them matter. Looks, age, gender, race, education, money, status, even the pimple on our nose. As long as we embrace our insecurities, we can succeed and align to all of our desires. For example, I've succeeded in network marketing, even though I'm very private. I'm a huge introvert, and I don't really like the classic networking. I became a diamond in 6 months, just sharing the oils my own way. So the second thing I got from that afternoon is all we can do is our best. And if that doesn't work, it's very important that we adjust. We must be willing to try different things, and that can take a lot of courage, especially when our desires take us outside of our comfort zone. Like horses, the universe will mirror back our own energy. So, does your behavior feel good? And does it provide the results you're after? Are your actions making you reach your goals and desires? If not, you need to change what you're doing. We can change everything that doesn't work for us. It's just a pattern. Also, life becomes a lot easier when we learn to ask for help. We don't have to know everything before we embark on a new journey. We can learn as we go. And lastly, our task is to enjoy life. It's like, if I had a tattoo, maybe it should be that, because it's written in the back of my mind now. And honestly, if we don't enjoy our life, what's the point of being here? That is... So, that has become my main strategy at this point. What do I enjoy? And how can I create more of that? What makes my heart sing? That's such an important question. How can I fill my days with that every day? And I teach my kids to do exactly that. And they have all kinds of that stuff that feels enjoyment to them. So I take enjoyment very seriously. In order to enjoy your life, you have to really understand who you are. And you have to learn that honoring our yeses and your no is the way. Being honest with our needs and desires gives the universe a chance to provide the details. And this is the very cool thing. When we connect to our heart space, we're taking straight to the path of our higher self. And that road is filled with so much deep meaning. This is where we succeed. This is where we thrive. And this is also where we shine in our own way. Thank you.